Hey guys, it's Blue Gal. How are you? Good to see you guys. And uh, this is the third podcast I've been on today. I was on with Mama Kratz today, and that will be coming up. I don't know when they release it, but it'll be coming up this week. And that was a lot of fun. And then Drift Glass, my husband was sick yesterday, and so we recorded our Thursday podcast today, and that will go up tomorrow for Professional Left podcast. So I've done two this afternoon, and now the third one. So, but this is the fun one. So I'm not worried about my energy level because I get to talk about knitting for 30 minutes. Uh, February socks. Gorgeous yarn. This is Ruby and Roses, is the brand. And it is, I'll show you Ruby and Roses. Yeah. The yarn is called Soft Rose. It is an 85 superwash merino, 15% nylon. And that's the name of the yarn, Soft Rose. And the colorway is First Frost. And so this sock is done, and I am at the toe on the second sock. Last week of every month is second sock week at my little group for 2025 Year of the UFO on Ravelry. Links below to all of that. And then the March socks, which I will cast on Saturday, are going to be unique socks. The theme for the March socks is sporty stripes. And as I've said before, the colorway for both high school and college for me is blue and white. So this colorway of unique sock, which comes in two little balls for socks and makes a stripe. This is the colorway Hanukkah, but it's also blue and white. So I'm going to make socks out of this sporty stripes for March. And the other thing that I finished this week, as I will finish these socks tonight, I hope, I finished the Motley Hoof cowl. And the colors are just fantastic. This is all stash yarn, fingering weight, size 3 needles. I still have some ends to work in tonight. I will, again, tonight is finishing night, so we'll work some ends in, but I did steam block this, and even though the ends aren't worked in, I'll pull this over my head to show you how tight it is. But I added 28 stitches to this from the pattern. I added an additional 28 stitches and ripped out my previous cast on of this. So this was, a frog. And and then I frogged again because I took out the ribbing at the bottom that was just too loose, and I just put 3 rows of seed and bound it off, which is, I really like that better than having a big long solid rib there with all the color work going on. And one of the things, when I posted this to Blue Sky, someone replied and said, I've been wanting to do color work and didn't want to take on a color work sweater, and a cowl seems like the way to go. And it is the way to go if you want to do some intricate color work, because there's no shaping, there's no fussiness with it. It's a rectangle, it's a tube, and it works. And it's a limited number of stitches. But again, I added 28 stitches to this to get it to go around my neck. So that made me think that I want to talk about today going back to basics and simple shapes, and how last week's podcast I talked about all of the socks that I'm going to knit for a year, and how what I forgot to mention was that I was shopping from Stash. that all of the yarn that I had showed you was in stash, and I wasn't having to buy yarn um, for the most part because I had yarn that met the themes for the grocery girls, and you can find yarns in your stash if you're, especially if you're a sock knitter like me and have a lot of sock yarn. Um, but shopping your stash for sweaters or cowls, um, it's really helpful to go back to patterns. I've got hair in my eye from putting that on my head. Okay. Um, find simple shapes to mix colors. And it it really helps to find simpler patterns if you're going to mix colors and do color work. And one of the things that I wanted to recommend if you're going to grab a lot of stash yarn like this is, and maybe you're going to combine, you know, multiple strands of fingering weight to marl yarn. There's that book Making Marls, which is by Cecilia. I forget how to pronounce her last name. It's like Campachero. Um, Making Marls, really good book for that, for combining and stranding different thinner yarns into thicker yarns. Another resource for simple shapes to use crazy yarn combinations is Noro magazine. And Noro is, of course, a Japanese yarn that does really crazy color combinations like this one. That's all one ball of yarn. Their dyeing techniques with wool is second to none amazing. These magazines are expensive magazines for expensive yarns. that's just the way to put it. But the thing about Noro magazine and Noro patterns is because the yarn is so busy, the shapes of the sweaters are really simple. And here you have a couple t-shirts that are rectangles. You can see again, this one is all one ball, one multiple skeins, but one type of yarn. They didn't stripe this. This is all dyed this way. The Noro doesn't spend a lot of time looking for fancy designs because there's no point. The yarn is so busy that adding a lot of shaping to that is pointless. You won't see the shaping through the yarn. This is a bulkier weight jacket with seed stitch and garter stitch. I believe it is top down, but the sleeves are rectangles. There's no shaping in the sleeves whatsoever. And that's all one colorway of a bulky weight. Actually, that's two strands held together of a worsted weight on big needles. So that would go very quickly. Garter and seed stitch. And the colors are gorgeous. I have one more example. This one, they broke up the wide horizontal stripes by doing two halves of a vest so that you get a vertical line going down the middle, and then that neckline is a very long V-neck, which also adds a vertical line to the garment. And the lace yarn overs add some diagonal lines to the garment, which take away from that big horizontal stripe that would be less flattering. So, but the shaping is zero. I mean, that is a straight rectangle without any shaping, and it's lovely. I'm going to be knitting later this spring. This Barocco pattern is called Villa. I've knit it once before for a middle child, and she wants another one. And this is a rectangle, and the bottom is a strip of garter stitch that you just do 12 or between 12 and 20 stitches, and you just knit garter stitch all the way across and then turn it on its side and pick up and do stockinette straight up. And you can see from the from the picture of the shape of the garment, it's a square. Now you do increase a few stitches here to give a little bit of an arm cuff, but it's a square. And you knit across here with the garter stitch and then pick up and just knit straight up, add a couple stitches here. There's a little bit of shaping at the shoulder, but not much. It's really pretty straightforward. So the other thing I was looking at, because I'm shopping around for a sweater to cast on, I have some yarn I want to make a sweater out of. And in Marianne's stash of many, many knitting books is Idiot's Guide to Knitting Sweaters, which I don't like idiot and dummy books for that that it's a put down, and putting yourself down as a knitter is not in my vocabulary. But going simple with some yarn that I have, and maybe doing some color work in there. And this walking jacket is very simple. It's a drop shoulder, which I might actually bring up that shoulder a little bit so the seam goes vertical. I've talked about that before. But it's got this lovely garter stitch shawl collar. Knit back and forth. That's it. Easy peasy. And I'm thinking about using a kind of a tweedy yarn for the body and a bright coordinating color, but also contrasting from the standpoint of standing out for that button band and that collar to make it give a vertical line, basically, and bring that color up around the face. And I will show you the swatch that I did for this sweater. It's acrylic yarn. It's not a big deal. It's some I'll have, when I start knitting it, I'll talk more specifically about the kind of yarn it is. But I wanted to do a little swatch so I could wash the swatch and see how the yarn washed together, and it worked out well. So this little tweedy brownish acrylic is going to be the main body of the sweater, and then this teal will be around the collar and the button band. And I played with it. I did some little bit of seed and garter and so forth. But the main reason I made the swatch was to throw it in the washing machine, and it turned out fine. So, and then I at the free table at church yesterday, was a booklet from 1960 called "Teach Yourself to Knit the Easy Columbia Minerva Way." And yeah, there they are knitting their dresses. 1968. But yeah, this had some really easy patterns in it, and some very clear instructions on how to knit. And so and big pictures. And I appreciate that. I really do. I've knit for almost 50 years, but seeing some very simple mitten patterns. There's no pictures or what's the word I'm looking for? There's no diagrams as far as shaping these sweaters. Some little baby jumpers. This one is worsted weight and no shaping. Just these are just rectangles sewn together, and there's a little bit of shaping in the booties, but you just pick up, you just cast on extra stitches for the armhole, and for a baby, that's all you really need to do. That's just garter and stockinette, and getting back to this and finishing something that is simple can really help with the UFO-itis that some of us right here have. Like, just cast on something simple and finish it. Like this cowl. Today, the 26th of February, is youngest child's birthday. Happy birthday, youngest child. 21 years old. And what they wanted for their birthday, what youngest child wanted for 21st birthday, was a very hungry caterpillar crocheted scarf out of acrylic yarn. I have learned my lesson in terms of what kids want, what college age kids want. They do not want bespoke wool sweaters. They want the very hungry caterpillar around their neck. So, yeah, that's, and this was quick. This was 20 stitches. Uh, and I will link to the pattern. It's a Etsy pattern. And I got the pattern. I paid for the pattern because I wanted to make the eyes correctly, and I think it was good for me to have the pattern from the standpoint of color arrangement. Um, so I will link to that pattern below. But yeah, it's the kids want something they can share with their friends and giggle about. You know, they don't want the bespoke wool sweaters. And when they need a wool sweater, they go to the thrift store and get it. So I have learned my lesson to just do 20 stitch crocheted half double crochet scarf and multiple green, and there's one blue. But it was helpful in terms of the pattern to have uh, an idea of the colorway because it is from a book, and so identifying it as actually the very hungry caterpillar from the Eric Carle books was a good idea. So happy birthday. Youngest child has seen this because her grandfather uh, ruined the surprise. I'm just going to say it. So I hope everybody has a good week. I will read to you from the beginning of Teach Yourself to Knit the Easy Columbia Minerva Way from 1968. And there's a picture of a goofy baby in there. Don't just sit there, knit something. Columbia Minerva's aim is to keep improving the accepted standard methods of instructions and to take the real or imagined mystery out of becoming a knowledgeable knitter. All guesswork has been eliminated, and anyone from 6 to 80, you're going to cut it off at 80, huh? Can become a self-assured knitter. Step-by-step diagrams with clear-cut explanations guide you from the first cast-on stitch through knitting, purling, shaping cables, and other patterns to complete your very first project. No abbreviations or shortcut phrases are used in any of the instructions. As a teaching aid for home, pleasure, or classroom for boys as well as girls, for men as well as women, Columbia Minerva offers a hobby and a pastime to satisfy the universal craving for creativity. Let's get on with it. And, that's an ad, but I love just don't sit there, knit something. And no abbreviations in here, but also, no diagrams, no measurements. So it's not as straightforward as they promise from my perspective. But easy patterns. And I really think getting back to, like, here's boat neck, 1968, but easy. And getting back to those easy shapes and casting on and finishing something, whether you go crazy with the color work on it or you knit something solid, it gets you out. First of all, it's a great way to shop your stash and find something either that you have a sweater quantity for, or to combine colors, and you're not worrying about shaping. You're combining multiple yarns from your stash. These two I did not buy together, these two yarns, but I found them looking at my stash and saying, oh wow, these really go together. So shop your stash, figure out what goes together, and then knit something in a simple shape. And I think it gets you over the hump of I'm never going to finish anything, because you finish something. All right. Hope that's helpful. And I will see you next week. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.